As luck would have it, I got about halfway through this video and I realized I didn't even have my mic on. So we're going to start over. You guys don't even know it's happened, but I'm just going to giggle about it. Welcome to Heartland Makes and Outdoors. If you've clicked on this video, there's a good chance that you're thinking about putting the new Newport NK300 motor on your kayak. So in this video, we're going to talk about the Newport NK300, how we've installed it on our Jackson Knarr. Some of the things that we're going to be doing on the Jackson Knarr, it would probably still apply to your kayak. So it doesn't really matter if you have a Jackson Knarr or not. Some of the things, and it doesn't matter if you're looking at the Torpedo, the Bigsby, or the Newport, some of these parts you're still going to have to buy because they don't make a package that's fully complete for all the different brands of kayaks out there. So basically you're going to get your motor, the mount, and the assembly to go with it. And guys, it comes with some really quality gear. I'm excited to share that with you as well. Also, we did purchase the 36-volt battery that they've basically brought about specifically for this motor. So we're going to be talking to you about the battery and how to get it mounted up. Again, we're going to be going through the hole and mounting the battery up in the front of the Jackson to keep the weight somewhat proportionate. For curiosity's sake, the battery weighs roughly 25 pounds and the motor weighs roughly 25 pounds. So putting the motor on the back of the boat, I want the battery up at the front to, just like say, just for counterbalance and counterweight. So again, guys, we're going to be talking about some of the things that you're going to need, how we installed it on the Jackson Knarr. Again, your kayak could vary, but essentially it's all going to end up being essentially the same. And then we're going to talk about some of the changes that were made on the NK300 that in my mind they should have highlighted on the website. Is it a deal breaker? I don't know that it's a deal breaker, guys, but it's something that definitely matters to me, and I'm going to point that out to you as well. So be sure to watch till the end. We're going to go outside right now and I'm going to show you how we've installed this. I'm going to be showing you some of the tools that we use to get this all installed and things that you can think about and consider, again, while you're waiting on your new Newport NK300 to arrive to your house. So let's go outside and check out the kayak. Alright guys, I figure we'll just go ahead and start right here. This is the Newport 36 volt 30 amp hour battery that I purchased along with the Newport NK300. This is a battery that was specifically designed for this new kayak motor, and I'm telling you guys, this thing's got a lot of power. It's quiet, it's smooth, it's fast. One thing I will point out real quick is you guys can see over here to the right, as you see here to the right of the battery, I'm not going to do a box opening, but the one thing I do want to say is the packaging is really nice. You can tell they went to a lot of effort. You've actually got the wording. You know what's in this box without even opening it. You know what's in this box without even opening it. And they did take a great deal of care and quality assurance so that when you do order from them, you don't have to worry about it being damaged in shipping. I'll show you a big hole in the front of the box, but there was absolutely nothing damaged in my box. And like I say, there's a pretty good sized gash in this box. You could stick your finger in here, but absolutely nothing was damaged. The parts that you get with this are all 100% Class A quality. Very nicely done, all the way from the packaging on up. So let's go out here. I'm going to show you how we got this thing rigged up on our kayak. I guess to me it just makes sense. We're going to go ahead. This is where the motor's going to mount. I'm going to show you how the motor mounts here in a minute, but this is basically this comes with the kit. It's going to come in your box, and this is your motor mount, and it does fit the Jackson Knarr. The one thing I will say is the bolts they send you for this are way too long for the Jackson Knarr, so I had to go buy some high strength bolts that would fit in these inserts that are already here, and then again I just used the washers that came with the kit. Another thing I want to point out while we're back here is for the motor mount assembly, and again I'll hook the motor up in a little bit and I'm going to show you how that works. But all these parts are stainless steel. I mean guys, this is quality stuff. You see this plate right here, this is something that I've made myself with Kydex. Guys, this is easy to work with if you've never worked with Kydex. In fact, I'll take you in and I'll show you at the end of this video. If you're curious, you can cut this with a razor blade and then form it to fit. And what I did is I just used some bolts. There's already some holes in this mounting bracket or something. I'm not sure what the holes are there for, because it's not like it's saving you any weight. But I used the holes that were already existing there, and then I put this plate on, which is just a piece of Kydex, and that's what I have this battery quick connect terminal attached to. Otherwise, when you're going down the road, guys, this thing's going to be flopping around and beating the crud out of your boat, and I didn't want that to happen. I also wanted it up here a little bit higher than laying on the deck in case you get a little bit of a wave or something that comes in over the back, or you hit your reverse on accident. At least this isn't sitting down here where it would be getting water. You've also got these eyelets in this motor mount. That does come on the motor. That's not something that you have to purchase. And again, like I say, all these parts are quality stainless steel. This came from the factory like that. You get a red cord, or the green cord, and then you also get the gray cord. The gray cord is going to go for the back here, and again, I'll show you that after we put the motor on. But that cord is what you're going to pull to lock your motor from tilting up when you put it in reverse. So it's basically just a reverse lock. Again, that cord's gray and green, and you could swap them out and make them whatever color you wanted. One thing I will point out while we're here, you see this piece of bungee rope? I put this on here just so that I end up laying down a tackle box or something on top of this. I do not want this cord to not be able to go back. The little spring that's built into their reverse lock, and I'll show you that when we put it on, is very, very soft spring. And I put this shock cord on here so that I know that I'm not going to have any problem with that cord popping back and not locking it in reverse. And the reason that that is so important, guys, if you end up hitting a stump or something out there while you're fishing, if that motor can't tilt up, you could probably damage your kayak. And I know that when my dad had the PA-14, he had the Torpedo that would drop in where the Mirage drive drops in. And I always worried about him hitting a stump or something with it because it would end up cracking the hull. And he never really seen it to be a problem until we actually were fishing one day and he sunk his kayak. That's when it made sense to him. Alright, if you can see these little pieces, there's another option that Yak Attack makes, and it's like a big silver eye bolt looking thing. I didn't want that on there. I thought it looked too big and bulky. I wanted it a little thinner design. But again, this is the cord that you're going to be able to pull your motor up out of the water, and that runs up to the front up here, and that's the direction we're headed right now. So when we get up here, I'll kind of show you how we've got our foot controls installed. Again, this is going to be another piece that you're going to have to buy. I used a total of 4. I've got 2 on this side. Actually, I've got 3 on this side, and I've got 2 over there on the other side for the reverse lock. So I used a total of 5. Now again, you can see this other little part over here, and like I said, I used 3 of these on the right hand side, and this is the cord that's going to pull the motor up. And it actually says on here reverse. I actually like the red, so I put the red on this side. It's not for reverse, but it's my kayak and I know the difference. This little cleat right here, if you'll notice it, this is something that doesn't come with a kit. If you don't want to buy one of these kits, and the way this thing works, if you're not familiar with it, when you got tension, you can pull this up and it'll bite in and it'll hold. It's basically like an anchor lock for a boat. But I put that on there. If you notice this little plate right here, I had to build this plate to mount onto the top of the tri-track so that I could screw that into the plate and then use the T connectors for the tri-track. And then that also actually worked out perfectly because it brings it up to about the right height where everything's all in line, and it just makes it easy. So again, the way that works, you would be pulling your motor up, it's going to lock into place, and then when you're ready to let your motor down, you just pull up on it, and it works really, really nice, guys. Again, that's another piece that you're going to need to buy or come up with. Another option is you could use something like this and then tie a knot in the rope, or even use the handle for that matter. If you tied it in the right spot, that would actually hold it as well. And the way this is built is it's only going to turn so much. It's got little feet in there to kind of connect to the tri-track, so it'll only go that far. But you could use that with the knob just like that, or tie a knot and loop it on there. The thing I like about the cleat back there is you've got infinite adjustability, so if you get into some shallower water, you could actually raise your motor up without having to tie a bunch of knots in your rope for different depths of how far you want your motor in the water. Okay guys, next up on part of the things that you're going to need if you decide you're going to steer with your feet. This is another piece, and I'll put a link, so if I can find where I ordered that from, I'll put this whole link here. But basically you get these, one for the right side, one for the left side. The kit that you get with your motor does come with this really nice cord, and it also comes with a steel cable, so you'd have your option as to what you wanted to use. I like the cord. And then also when you order this kit with this, it comes with the black tubing that you're going to need, so that if you're going to run your cord through the spots that are already made in the kayak from the factory, you can use that tubing to run your cord through. Okay, another thing that I did end up making is I built these brackets so that I could attach this to the side of my kayak. I use my paddle over here, and that'll come in a different video. I'm going to show you a whole breakdown of how we've gotten this whole kayak ready for fishing and tournament fishing. That video will be coming out soon. For initial, I wanted to show you how we've got this installed. So I made these brackets. Again, they're made out of Kayaks. I made it to where it would fit snugly right up against the side. I didn't want anything on the top of this track in case I wanted to put anything I wanted up here. That way that's not in the way. And then again, when you're looking at this measurement right here, from here down to the floor, I just took the measurement off of my Jackson Knarr and I put it exactly the same. I think it's 4 inches or 5 inches to the center of the pedal, and that's exactly how I rigged it up for this. So quickly, I'm going to show you where I've got the battery installed, and then I'll show you some tools that we use to make this a lot easier. Alright guys, so real quickly, the way that I'm putting my battery in here, you can put it in here, as you can see over there on this right hand side is where the electrical connection is for the quick connect. It does not come with the motor. It's an additional part, and it's like 50 bucks extra, and it gives you a way that you can quick connect your battery instead of using the screws, which I think would be well, number one, if you're putting in a Jackson Knarr, the cable's not going to be long enough. So using this quick connect, it gives you an extra 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet of cord, and realistically that is just barely long enough, because if you can see, that's as far forward as it's going to come. Now you can still attach that cord, but you have to kind of set the battery in here a little bit at an angle, and then hook it up with your hand, and then push the battery back in. And then after the battery's in there, I use rock strap, is essentially where your transducer goes through. So I tie it to that, and then also you get a lot of this foam, and then I shove a piece of foam up here on top of the battery, so that if I did flip over, my battery should stay in one place. It shouldn't be flopping all around or anything like that. And it is a sealed battery, so it should be somewhat safe, although you don't really want to do that. But I think most people that end up flipping their kayaks didn't intentionally do it to begin with, so that's just kind of a safeguard. Again, you get a lot of this really good foam. Just cut up pieces and make it fit however you want. I didn't want the battery touching the hole. I think that could be problematic as well, so I used some of the same foam out of the shipping box that the motor came in. Just created a nice little platform for the battery to set there level, tied in with the rock strap, shove this into the top, and that thing's not going nowhere, guys. And you don't have to worry about it rocking forward and unplugging your plug. They do make an extension on the plug. I don't know how much it was. I also, being a ham radio operator, I understand that if you have a longer electrical line, you're going to be losing some. Now, it may be a little bit of energy that you're losing, but with it being just barely long enough to fit, I'm going to leave it like that until it becomes a problem, and then I'll just cut those cables. I've already got some 8-gauge copper wire that I use to hook up ham radio stuff anyways, and I could, you know, just add 2 more foot to that, and it would make it easier to get it in and out. But that's something to think about if you are setting it up with the Knarr. If you was to put it in the battery tray up front and not go through the hole like I did, you may potentially have enough cable, but I can't confirm that because I didn't do it. I would say you would, because this is using more cable coming this way than it would if you just ran it through the boat. I just didn't want all that stuff in the middle of the boat. As clean as this boat is and fishing ready, I don't want it in there. And then continuing on around, this is on the other side of the boat. This gray cable is going to be what we use to lock it so that it doesn't move for when you go into reverse. There is a handle, and I've got the handle tucked up in this little Jackson bag that's tied to the seat. Again, I don't want that thing banging around making noise. It's just more junk in the way, so I don't even think you need the handle. In fact, I may take it off. I do like the blue color of it. It looks good, but you can pull this with your finger. I mean, it's not like you're trying to lift the weight of the motor, just actuating that lock. So let's go ahead and put the motor on, guys, and we'll continue talking about some of the things that we did to modify this to fit our needs better. Now then, you've got steering cable for the left side. Again, it comes with very nice stainless steel hardware to hook this up to the steering, for the steering. It's also got the deal to keep it from, if you run into a brush pile or whatever, it's not going to come undone on you. So you've got your left and right steering cable. That's how I've got them hooked up. And I did use, like I showed you earlier, the ports where it goes through the hull of the Jackson Kayak, because it's already made for it. This is how you're going to raise and lower the motor. And let me go up there and release that, because I've got it tightened when I was showing you how that thing works. Next thing that you connect up, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to connect your red wire to the red side. Now you've got a quick connect there. Lastly, you've got your throttle control, which will come in here. And again, this is, I'm assuming it's a watertight sealed joint the way that works. And then lastly, this is the reverse, and this was the deal I was talking about, that I put that bungee cord on there. So the way the reverse works, and let me readjust the camera. I'm going to show you how this reverse lock works. Okay, so the way this reverse lock works is that bar that's right here. There's a little bar that comes down when you pull this, and that grabs a hold of that bar, so when you're holding it, your motor won't lift up. It'll only go back, what, 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch, or whatever. They give you a little bit of play there. But that's this one pin down at the bottom right here stays in this. You don't need to ever take it out, because that's all that's there for, is for that to connect onto when you're using your reverse lock. And again, like I said, this little spring in there is pretty weak in my mind, and I'm only saying that because I can picture myself throwing junk in the kayak, something landing on this gray cord, and then it not wanting to release, so I put this bungee cord, again I tied that to that bracket over here that I showed you that I made for this, and that way it's going to pull the cord back. That spring that's in there is adequate. I don't think that this spring would ever not work. But for me, this is just added peace of mind, because I could picture myself laying some junk on this cord and then it not wanting to release. Again, that's no flaw with Newport, no flaw with their design. I will tell you a funny story. I was watching somebody else's install video on this, and when they were fiddling around with it, they were going to show you how easy it is to pull this motor up using the motor pull-up cord, and this had locked into place and he couldn't raise it. And I thought that's exactly why I put shock cord on mine, because I know I could end up laying something on this gray cord and then it ain't going to release. And you definitely don't want that to happen when you run into a stump or something. Alright, one thing I do want to point out as far as the height and where you want to mount this motor, I was told that the top of the motor should be flush with the rudder of the Kayak. So that's where it's mounted on mine, and it's just lined up to where the top of the motor is lined up with the bottom of the rudder. Again, that's just what I was told. Guys, I'm not a Newport expert, and I'm expert. I'm not a Newport expert, so I couldn't tell you. Evidently Buster wants to be in the frame. Sorry about that. While we're on the subject of the rudder, I do want to tell you this. I was still waiting on my steering cable, pedal steering that's mounted up front. While I was waiting on that, I took this out because I wanted to see how the motor worked, how well it was going to push the Kayak, and just kind of get an overall feel for how much I'm going to like or love it or hate it. And I'll tell you this much: if you think that you're going to be able to steer your Kayak, especially a Jackson Knarr with the rudder on it, with the motor going, you're sadly mistaken. It will not work. It basically works like a trim, if you will. So if you was slightly off on 90 degrees on installing this, because there is a pin where you could lock that into a 90-degree position, but it works more like a trim where you could kind of, you're barely going to straighten up anything, but you're not going to be able to make turns with it. So, and then also coming from 10-12 years of paddling, I thought, well, hey, I bet you could steer it a little bit with paddle. And I was able to do that, but again, guys, you're wasting a lot of energy and time. You do need to hook up and figure out a way to get your steering installed on this, because the rudder's not going to do it. And again, I had no intentions of not installing the steering. I just didn't have the steering hooked up, and I wanted to take it out, get on the water. You know me, I'm like a kid. I wanted to be excited. Now we're going to talk about real quick. I told you at the very beginning of this video, one of the things that I believe they needed to highlight in their website. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to readjust the camera. I'm going to show you a couple of things that are Jackson specific and things you can think about even if you have a Hobie or whatever else. Alright, again guys, if you've got the Jackson, it came with some of these Yak Attack through-hole deals. That's how I ran the battery through. That is not necessarily Jackson specific, but it is something that if you want to run it through, you can buy this part. Our Kayaks actually come with two of them. Next up is I've got this. This is one of the old stand assist straps that came on my Jackson Cuda, and I've got it wrapped around the actual handle down there, because you do not want to lift up the back of your Kayak with this motor mount plate. According to the directions, it'll be too much stress on the boat. I don't know if that's factual or not. I don't intend on lifting this Kayak up anyways, but if I did need to, I've got the stand assist strap that will actually, you could use it as a handle. Now then, again, everything on this boat or everything that comes in this kit that you get from Newport is Class A quality. I'm going to tell you what my complaint is. I'm going to let you guys ponder on it. Again, is it a deal breaker? I don't know. Again, I could see it being a problem, especially on a kayak tournament when you're trying to get your boat set up at 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 or whatever, and the sun hadn't come up and it's dark. And it's this piece right here. This piece right here, when you talk about a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. This little cotter pin, albeit I'm sure it'll work, it'll keep this big nut from backing off. It's not going to let it back off, so you're not going to lose your motor. The thing I wonder about, if you find yourself in a grassy area, is it going to just pop out? I think that's highly possible. Secondary to that, this is really fiddly. Let me undo some of this stuff so I can take this motor off and show you. I'll be right back. Okay, and again, this is a little fiddly. You have to unscrew this to take your motor off. And now mind you, you're not going to want to leave this motor on this Kayak, especially during transport. It's too heavy. It's 25 pounds hanging off the back of your boat by 6 inches, 8 inches, whatever this bracket is. But if you're out in the morning trying to get ready for a kayak tournament and you go to put this on, I can picture myself with my bad eyes seeing it. You have to kind of mess with it to get it to go in there, guys. And that's what I'm talking about. This is fiddly. There, it finally went in. Okay, so now you can tighten it up. And that little cotter pin is the only thing holding your motor on. I don't understand why they did away with the quick disconnect. I mean, they had it on the NK180. Everybody fell in love with it because you could quickly set your boat up. If you guys have ever rode mountain bikes or anything like that, you know how quick those quick clips are. You put it, it slides right down in the grooves, bam, you twist the little handle over, it's automatically pre-tensioned and tightened up however you had it set up last time, so you're running the same tension every time. But it's a 5-second deal to drop it in there. Everything's going to line up because it's going straight down a track. This is fiddly. Is it a deal breaker? Guys, I can't say whether it is or not. I want to point it out because I haven't watched one video yet where anybody's pointed that out, and I've contacted customer service. Again, we're not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying I don't like it. And it matters to me that when you watch all their videos, they keep showing you the NK180 quick connect, and then when you get this here, you don't even realize it till you've already got it mounted. You're like, whoa, what? And then you're like, well, it ain't that big a deal until you start trying to put it in. I'm going to show you something else real quick. This pin or this bolt, whatever you want to call it, because it doesn't really matter, it has a shoulder on here. And what happened exactly when I was showing you how it was kind of fiddly, when you've got the weight of the motor and you're trying to line this up, it will sometimes get hung up right there. Okay, so when you go to put your nut on, you're like, okay, well, I can't get my cotter pin in, so the bolt ain't in all the way, and you can visually see it on the other side anyways, and you're like, well, now I've got to mess with it. But again, guys, is it a deal breaker? I'm not saying that it's a deal breaker. I'm just saying that's really fiddly. And again, I never have any intentions. I think this would be a perfect setup if a guy was leaving the motor on his boat and never taking it off. I just don't think that's a good, safe way to store a kayak, especially here in East Texas. We're pushing 105 degrees again today. You want to talk about deforming your plastic on your boat? Hang a 25-pound motor off the back of it and let it sit there all afternoon and go and see if you don't look like an upside down banana. Again, I think that would work perfectly if you was leaving it mounted to your boat, but trying to get set up early in the morning or even in the middle of the afternoon, it's kind of fiddly. I wish they would have left the quick connect system on there. And again, I'll tell you what they told me when I contacted them, because I know I'm not the only one going to be asking. Real quick, guys, I'm going to show you how easy it is to raise and lower the motor using that green cord. Again, that's just using that slip lock up front, and then when you get to your spot wherever you're ready, say you're done, you've already got, you're off the boat ramp and you're ready to go motor across the lake, it just drops down nice and easy. Real smooth, real fluid, no problems at all, guys. I mean, this thing, like I say, all the components on this thing are absolutely amazing. I'm just a little sad about that quick connect not being on there, and I may be the only one, guys. I mean, again, that's just my opinion. I think everything about this Newport Vessel's motor is top-notch, top quality, and I just really was looking forward to the quick connect, and it does not come with it. And again, if you've been looking at the Newport motor at all, you already know it's powerful, it's quiet, and it's efficient. I'm not going to fire it up here in the driveway. Let's go out on the lake, and I'm just going to show you how quiet and powerful and efficient this thing is. Alright guys, I promised you at the very beginning I'd share some tools with you that'll make your life easier as far as installing this. This is basically field fence wire, and it's a piece of wire that you put on the top of a field fence or the bottom of it. It's firm enough that you can actually run your electrical cable from the back to the front, as well as when you're running this tubing for your steering. Now, one thing I want to show you is how you can make a mushroom. We're going to use that same piece of this wire because it's the exact right size, but I'm going to show you how you make the mushroom ends on this to keep this plastic from pulling out when you're turning left or right, because if it grabs a hold of that, it could just slide right through that little hole. So what we want to do is we want to basically form a mushroom. It's real simple, guys. We're just going to heat that up with a lighter. It's real easy, guys. What you want to do is have your piece of wire already set up in your crimping tool. We're going to heat up this tubing. It only takes a second or two. It gets real hot real quick because it's just lightweight. Slide that up there, smash it into that. And that creates the mushroom end. Now again, cut you off a piece of this and do it a couple of times so that you can make sure that you've got it. It doesn't matter. It's like this one, I'd like for the mushroom to be a little bit bigger. Reheat it back up, smash it down there. Again, you could use a heat gun, you could use a lighter, butane deal or whatever, but basically what you're trying to do is develop a ridge around that so that it won't slide through the plastic hole. And with that said, they give you enough of this stuff that you could actually make 3 full runs on the Jackson Knarr. So you've got plenty to practice. And like I say, this wire is the perfect size for running your cables. And again, guys, if you don't have this wire for like the fencing, they sell it at Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever. Tractor Supply's probably got it as well. Any of your farm and ranch stores should have it. But if you don't want to go buy, because it'll come in like a 200 or 300 foot length, you could still find you a nail or something that's going to be that right size so that you can make these mushrooms. And you could improvise using even like a chase for like a plumber would use or an electrician would use to chase wires down. It doesn't have to be that hard, but you can't reach from one end to the other, and tossing it through there is probably not going to work. I did use a little round mirror so that when I was running this tubing on the Jackson Knarr, and this is Jackson Knarr specific, make sure that this tubing doesn't get hung up on your rear fishing hole mount, because it's down there in the hole, and this could easily get on the wrong side of that, and you don't want that. You want it as straight as it can be when you're installing it. And I used a mirror just to verify and make sure, because my first one I knew it was hung up on something, I couldn't tell what it was, so I stuck a mirror down in the hole of the boat, used a flashlight, lit it up, and I could see, okay, it was hanging up on the fishing rod holder, the one that comes pre-installed and it's permanently mounted back there behind the seat. Again, that was the only little hiccup, and that was fixed way before it was ever a problem. One thing I do want to point out real quick while we're back here, and that just goes back to traveling with your kayak on your trailer or your truck or truck bed, whatever you're doing. You guys know I like these little Velcro straps, and that's just going to help keep all these little wires and stuff from getting tangled up and twisted up in a knot before you get to wherever you're headed. That works out real nicely. Again, I like this little plate cover that I built for this thing so that it'll just keep your power cord up off the boat. It ain't banging around while you're traveling. And then everything's sealed up real nice, guys. I've taken this out 4 times now since I've installed this motor. Once without the steering, and then the rest of the time with the steering. And I'm telling you, there's no leaks, there's no problems. This thing is just liquid IV smooth. Man, it's powerful. I love it. Don't let my little knob deal discourage you from buying this motor if you want it. It's a great motor. Just know up front it ain't going to come with a quick connect. Guys, I hope you found this video somewhat helpful, and I hope that it's given you some ideas on potentially how you could mount up or modify or make your own brackets. The other thing that I didn't show you in this video is where the actual throttle control is. The throttle control currently where it is right now is on the right hand side of the seat. I'm using the Kayak fish finder mount basically, and it's velcroed to the top of that. I thought it was going to be in a good spot, but I don't really care for it, and I'm going to tell you why. Because right there where it is, when I was setting the hook on a fish the other day, I accidentally bumped that throttle into reverse. not only did it scare the tar out of me, because I'm wondering what all that splashing and banging around is probably somewhat dangerous. So one thing that you want to think about, guys, and I didn't think about it at the time, but when you get to your spot and you're going to start fishing, there's a little bitty button on the control panel. It's the power switch. Power that thing off, and then also if you want to take that magnetic seal switch off, that way you don't accidentally shove it in reverse or forward. I didn't mention it in this video because I'm going to do a full review. There are some quirks with the throttle control, and I'll do that in another video as well. Now back to customer service. I did talk with Gary. I sent an email and I was like, hey, can I buy just the quick connect for this motor that you sell for the NK180, because I don't like this, and I don't mind buying the quick connect. I understand they've got a company, they're running a business, and it costs them money to send stuff out. I'm not a big enough YouTuber where they're ever going to fathom sending me the NK300 and the 40 amp hour battery. I know that ain't going to happen, and I'm not asking for it. All I'm asking is, can I buy the quick connect, because you know it's going to be the right spacing. And I said, that bracket, it looks to me like it's made out, or the motor mount looks to me like it's made out of aluminum. I didn't put a magnet on it to double check it, but if it is, I can cut that with my table saw or whatever else, cut the grooves in it, and just use the quick connect. Gary replied and he's like, hey, he said he talked with the specialist. He said that the mounting bracket and the quick connect for the NK180 would fit on the NK300. He said if I would like, he said the specialist told him, instead of me cutting up my motor mount that I have, it'd be better off just to go ahead and buy the whole mount, motor mount and quick connect. And he said he would be more than happy to send me an invoice on that and let me know how much that was going to be as an upcharge, because I've already spent upwards of $2,000 on this motor and battery. Guys, the reason I'm telling you this is because it does sound like it will work. So if you can find a used one on eBay cheap, and or maybe contact Gary with customer service and say, hey, I really want the NK300, but I do not want the little tiny knob and cotter pin set up, because I'm going to be fishing kayaks, trying to set up my boat in the dark. It's a kayak. I'm taking this motor on and off a lot, and I don't want to fool with the knob. That may be something they could work out to where you wouldn't have to spend, I don't know how much it would even cost, guys, because I wasn't going to ask. I'm over budget with this motor build as it is. It wouldn't matter if it was 30 bucks. I'm out of money. Again, guys, if you like our video, give us a big thumbs up. If you enjoy fishing, I'd love to talk you into subscribing to our channel. We've already been fishing Lake of the Pines here in East Texas. We're going to be fishing Caddo Lake a lot more. And then also, if we get closer into the fall, there's a chance we may be tag teaming up and going out and hitting some of the far East Texas fishing kayak tournaments. I know there's supposed to be a handful of them this fall when the weather cools off to less than 110. And we're also going to be, like I say, we're going to be doing a lot of fishing, whether we get into any of the fall bass tournaments or not. We're going to be doing a lot of crappie fishing, catfishing, and there's no lake in the world like Caddo Lake. And guys, I'd love to bring you along with me and show you not only how we're using our NK300 motor to motor around this lake, how we're able to find different places to fish on the lake, and share those with you just in case you ever want to go to Caddo Lake and fish. Again, we appreciate your likes, comments, and subscribes, and may God bless you and your family. I hope you all have a blessed week. And let's get outside and make something happen. I do want to say this real quick. If you made it all the way through this video, thank you so much. If you don't mind, give us a big thumbs up, because those thumbs ups really help us. Those thumb up really help our videos, and it helps our YouTube algorithm. As you know, we're trying to grow our channel. I'd like to see us up around 5,000 before the end of the year.